Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. It appears that France's own Mekhaled, off 2 consecutive losses, is set to return to action this weekend opposite the ring Russia's own Yulia Kutsenko.
Few passing thoughts.
It's good that Mekhaled isn't sitting on those 2 consecutive losses to Delphine Persoon and Alicia Baumgartner more recently, that she's getting right back out there, right back on the horse.
I think she'll win a points decision.
Mekhaled is a very spry 32 years old, whereas Yulia, she's just a year older at 33. is the taller, longer, rangier fighter, whereas Yulia, she's the shorter, stumpier fighter, the more pocket-sized fighter, compact.
She's a mid-range to inside fighter.
Given her physical dimensions, she has to be, whereas she's a bit more malleable. She can do a bit of work on the inside and box from the outside whilst fighting on the fly.
She needs a W.
There's really no shame in suffering those 2 consecutive losses to those 2 particular fighters, Delphine Persoon, Alicia Baumgartner. You're talking about 2 of the very best fighters in the women's super featherweight division. This contest, this fight, taking place this weekend. It's taking place north of super featherweight at lightweight, a 6-rounder.
Mekhaled sports a professional record of 15 wins with 2 losses, no draws, 3 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 17 professional bouts.
Having fought 2 of the bigger punchers, 2 of the biggest punchers anywhere at or around these weights, that's saying something, that in 17 pro fights, Elham's never been knocked out. She's been knocked down, but she'll get up.
She's tough.
Showed real fighting spirit in both the Delphine Persoon and Alicia Baumgartner fights. Gave it a go, gave it her best shot. And even though she got beat, I feel like she endeared herself to the fans because she was giving an earnest effort whilst coming under heavy fire.
She didn't quit.
She'll be opposite the ring Yulia Kutsenko this weekend, who sports a professional record of 9 wins with 4 losses, 2 draws, 4 knockouts, having been knocked out once, at least once.
I expect that Yulia, being the smaller fighter, not having much of a choice, she's going to have to try to get within striking distance of Elham, who's got 2 good legs under her.
I've seen a bit of Yulia Kutsenko here and there. I remember the Firuza Sharapova fight.
Firuza beat her on points.
Yulia is a bit of an action fighter, a limited one. She's got some bounciness, some athleticism. Not enough for the top girls, but enough that she's a serviceable fighter.
Yeah.
A useful fighter you can find use for.
Yeah.
An ideal fight for Mekhaled, who's on the rebound.
Yulia saw action once in 2021, 2 times in 2022, and she's already seen action at least once this year.
Though she is in a bit of a bad way. She's only won 2 of her last 6.
Just 2 fights.
And that was approximately 4 fights ago. Currently, she's coming off a majority draw, and before that, she was coming off of 2 consecutive losses.
I don't like her chances this weekend.
You can say that Mekhaled, she's coming off of 2 consecutive losses of her own, but she showed a lot of spirit and some ability in those fights, that she didn't get stopped by either Delphine or Alicia. That says a lot about Elham's punch resistance, her toughness.
If she wins this fight, that sets her up to do other things. This is a lightweight contest. Lightweight, that's 135 pounds.
But Katie Taylor still reigns as that division's undisputed champion, and where she will be fighting Chantel Kimran for the 2nd time in defense of her alphabet titles, her belts. That's also where former unified super featherweight champion Michaela Mayer currently campaigns. If Mekhaled wins,
maybe she can fight her.
Maybe she can fight Michaela Mayer. Maybe she can fight her countrywoman, Estelle Mosley of La France, the Olympic gold medalist and amateur standout who has failed to impress me as a professional.
Just staying out there on the outskirts instead of mixing it up with the good girls, the top fighters at her weight.
Top girls.
If Mekhaled wins this weekend, maybe she can see about fighting her, fighting Estelle.
It's a good fight. They can do that right there in France.
Got to take care of Yulia first, and I think she can. I think she will. I think she's going to win a points decision.
Men's lightweight news. The numbers are in for this past weekend's contest, this last weekend's controversial fight, pay-per-view, with Vasyl Lomachenko and Devin Haney. The reported number is in the neighborhood of 150,000 pay-per-view buys. I have to admit, the number is somewhat underwhelming. I was hoping for something more akin to 200,000 or close to 300,000. This was a very good fight.
Yeah.
The aesthetic of the match was also very entertaining. It's the outcome that disappointed everybody. And the adverse effect that it's had on the consumer,
Yeah.
the boxing community at large?
I saw celebrities like Boosie Badass and Nelly say that they're done with boxing.
We talked about that here on the channel, how many of Devin Haney's supporters want to be in denial about the fight's outcome, what really happened. The reality is,
It was a bad advertisement.
when the right man doesn't win the fight, it's a bad advertisement for boxing as a commodity, as a sport, because it starts to seem less and less like a sport and more like a scripted drama, to where the outcome is already decided before the fight begins. It's preordained.
150,000 buys?
It's the funniest thing. In light of that controversy, the controversial outcome, it's a bad advertisement for the sport, but they could actually do good business, even better business, with a rematch, with a second fight.
Kind of like what we saw with Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury. The first fight was scored a draw. Controversial draw. A lot of people felt Tyson Fury won.
And the first fight sold approximately 325,000 buys. On the heels of the controversial outcome, the rematch sold even more. Twice as much.
More than twice.
More than 2 times. The first fight sold 325,000. The second fight sold a little over 800,000. 800,000. More than 2 times as many pay-per-views.
Controversy sells.
Looks to me like this could be a very bad advertisement for the sport if they leave that unfinished business unfinished. People aren't going to be in a hurry to buy a fight when they watch a guy get robbed and nothing happens.
I think it's an injustice.
If Devin doesn't run it back, if he doesn't right those wrongs, and he doesn't give Lomachenko a rematch, well,
It's a bad advertisement.
if he does, it's different. If he does, you can sell that. You can sell that rematch. So many having taken in the first fight, the ripples and waves that the controversy caused, you can sell that second fight. You can sell that rematch. Shakur Stevenson.
He was asked if Devin Haney should run it back with Lomachenko, and he said,
If I were in his shoes, I would for sure run it back, because I wouldn't want the public to think this dude beat me. That's going to travel with him for the rest of his career.
Devin supporters think they can trick people into thinking the outcome wasn't controversial.
Shakur thinks it was. He thinks it was controversial enough that Devin should give Lomachenko a rematch, and he's not alone.
Obviously, I've showed you what I would do. I personally would run it back. I would run it back just because I'm a competitor. And it's not just the public saying I lost, but personally for me, I wanted to create some separation. And I think Devin Haney should do that. I think he should rematch Lomachenko.
Do you want to see a rematch? Do you
Yes,
think rematch merited?
I think it warrants a rematch. I think it warrants the rematch.
Andre Ward, Antonio Tarver. Antonio, who actually thinks Devin did enough. He's still saying they need to run it back.
Antonio, who says Haney won the fight and Loma should have taken more risks, taken more chances in the fight. Better still, based on the controversy, they need to run it back. They need to do it again.
This coming from the guy that actually thinks Haney won legitimately. It's funny that's the stance that he's taking.
Nico Ali Walsh says they need to run it back also.
These are the people, the opinions, the annotations that the Devin Haney supporters wish for me and you to ignore. In truth, I don't have a vetted interest in any one individual's opinion and their annotations. I simply share in that opinion.
Even if I don't swear by them.
And I don't. I thought this fight's outcome was a robbery long before I realized everybody else did too.
And they're speaking out.
I should ignore my own thoughts, my own opinions on the fight and its outcome. I should ignore the opinions of others, many, many others, the majority.
Some who actually went in rooting for Devin Haney but thought Lomachenko snagged it. Lomachenko won it.
I should ignore all of them so that I can acknowledge you.
Because of how objective you are.
Robert, what'd you think? I got that Loma got robbed, man.
Damn, how did you do it?
The fuck, Loma clearly beat him, man. What are you talking about?
It's being robbed, man. Watch out your wallet, your watch, and everything, okay?
How'd you have it scored?
I think I saw, honestly, Loma by 2 points.
But Loma got robbed.
How many rounds did you think Loma won?
Most of them, bro. Loma got robbed, bro, big time.
You see how it's a common sense argument to people in the industry, people in the know?
It's not something you have to split hairs over. It's obvious.
It's obvious to them, like it's obvious to me, like it's obvious to most. It's obvious that it was a robbery. It's even more obvious when people who claim they had Devin Haney winning insist that he ought to run it back, that he ought to do a rematch. If you had him winning...
If it's as decisive as Devin's supporters make it out to be, why do so many people insist he run it back? Why are they insisting on a rematch?
We all know why. The problem here is, a lot of guys who like to look at this fight through rose-tinted lenses, it's not enough that they lie to themselves about it. They want to lie to me and you, suppress me and you, and they're not going to succeed. It's not going to work because there's more of us than there are of them.
Very simple.
It's just like Shakur says it is. You know, Devin doesn't have to run it back with Vasyl Lomachenko. He's under no obligation, contractual or otherwise, to give him a rematch, though if he doesn't, that's something that will travel with him for the rest of his career.
Devin's supporters are resorting to gaslighting and reverse psychology,
pretending that we're the ones that are at odds with the rest of the world, calling this fight a robbery when that's them.
You're the ones at odds with the rest of the world.
Because the rest of the world don't feel the same way you do. They don't believe you, your scorecard, your annotations.
Nope.
None of it.
Nobody needs to argue with you about what you think and how you scored it when they know it's a robbery. They saw the fight.
Some things are too obvious to argue.
It's not even me advocating that Devin give him a rematch or wanting him to. I'm just saying if he doesn't, and he leaves that unfinished business unfinished...
Causality. And he's on borrowed time because Shakur Stevenson is his mandatory challenger. And according to Shakur, they're in the process of enforcing that mandatory status.
To either get a fight or get a belt.
Devin's got at least two mandatory challengers in the queue. Shakur Stevenson by way of the WBC and Gervonta Davis by way of the WBA.
Gervonta Davis is currently under house arrest until the end of the summer.
Not convinced he's going to push for a Devin Haney fight, but Shakur Stevenson, according to Shakur, he's already started.
Devin's got to make a decision.
Finally, it's official. In late August, Artur Beterbiev will be defending his 3 alphabet titles against former super middleweight champion turned light heavyweight contender Callum Smith of the United Kingdom. This is a fight we've already talked about several times.
It's hard to like Callum's chances in this fight given the amount of respect he gave John Ryder, the amount of respect he gave Canelo Alvarez when he fought those fighters down there at super middleweight, at light heavyweight.
He'll be opposite the ring, not just the division's strongest finisher, but one of the strongest finishers in the entire sport of boxing. It's hard to give Callum little more than just a puncher's chance.
Beyond that fight,
should Artur Beterbiev win. Word round the campfire, according to SC Boxing Studs y Noticias,
in reference to the only other champion at this weight, Dmitry Bivol, who's in possession of the WBA title.
Caption that reads, our friend, the journalist Bernardo Pilati, confirms that today, the great Russian world champion Dmitry Bivol is a free agent. Pilati speculates that an approach with Top Rank to seek a light heavyweight unification with Artur Beterbiev is not unreasonable.
I think that fight could have made more money on the matchroom side of things, though all the same, so long as the fight happens, who cares who promotes it?
If Top Rank does end up doing the fight, so long as they do the fight, it's all the same to me, though. What about Dmitry Bivol versus Canelo Alvarez? What about that fight? That was said to be the focus of Canelo Alvarez's efforts moving forward.
Looks like there's been a change in plan.
As David Benavidez's promoter confirms, a meeting with Reynoso and plans to pursue the Canelo fight. This news, this bit of information, actually came to us over the weekend, though in light of this weekend's robbery, it fell a little low on the radar.
Robbery.
Samson Lukowicz, Benavidez's promoter, confirmed that he intends to push for a title consolidation clash with undisputed super middleweight champion Canelo Alvarez. Such a fight has been long desired by the unbeaten former 2-time WBC titleist, who currently holds an interim version of the belt and whose team is keen to set forth the process to bring the division's 2 best fighters into the ring. I had the pleasure and honor of sharing a meeting with Canelo team, Eddie Reynoso, Alvarez's longtime trainer and manager, and Luis de Cubas Jr. for the Championship Boxing Unification Consolidation Clash, Lukowicz revealed Saturday via social media. Next week, I will send an offer for him to review and make a decision on his future opponent.
It's not a unification and it's not a title consolidation. David Benavidez isn't a champion, and it's It's nauseating how much they try to pass him off as one.
He's just a mandatory. He's just a mandatory challenger, the same as John Ryder before him. Guadalajara's Alvarez fully unified the super middleweight division with an 11th round knockout of Caleb Plant in November of 2021. The fight headlined a Showtime pay-per-view event branded by Premier Boxing Champions and was put together in large part due to the effort of DeCubas, Plant's manager, who plays an integral role at the PBC. At the time, Alvarez's only outstanding mandatory was with the WBA, whose secondary title is held by David Morrell. He scored a third-round knockout of WBC #1 contender Avni Yildirim earlier that February, while Plant outpointed IBF mandatory challenger Caleb Truax in their January 2021 PBC on Fox headliner.
If the Canelo people are having meetings with the Benavidez people, that must mean they're not pursuing that rematch with Dimitri.
On the face of it, that's how it looks, and these widespread rumors about Dimitri now becoming a free agent, crossing over to Top Rank in pursuit of Artur, rather the winner of Beterbiev versus Smith.
This is how Dimitri and Vadim Kornilov need to play it. They need to wait out the outcome of Callum Smith versus Artur Beterbiev, because if Callum pulls off this miracle and he shocks Artur Beterbiev, he's going to take those 3 belts back to Matchroom.
You don't want to jump into bed with Top Rank before that happens. You don't want to jump into bed with Top Rank and make a commitment to them until the outcome of this fight is decided. If you're not fighting Canelo for a second time in September because Canelo's having meetings for a Benavidez fight, then that's the way to do it. That's the way to go.
Wait out the outcome of that fight. See who wins. If it's Artur, you cross over to Top Rank. If it's Callum,
tell Matchroom to get it done. Tell Matchroom to set it up. The undisputed light heavyweight title fight, south of light heavyweight at super middleweight. Looks like Canelo may be in the market for the Benavidez fight. After all, the fight that everybody said he was avoiding.
This news seems to indicate the opposite.
Eddie Reynoso is a smart guy, and he has to know that tactically and strategically, they can't hope to beat Dimitri Bivol. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in having lost that fight to that guy venturing north of super middleweight where most dare not go. A Benavidez fight is a more winnable fight.
Because he's basic.
He's big and he's young.
But he's basic.
This could presumably take place on the PBC side of things because Samson Lukowicz made it clear he will not part with David Benavidez, that if it comes down to sending David over to DAZN, then it don't go down. It don't happen.
Yes, sir. So, does that mean you'd be willing to fight on DAZN if that's what Canelo wanted?
No. I believe that his contract expired on the next fight.
Using this fight, David Benavidez, as a bargaining chip to bring Canelo Alvarez back over to the Showtime and PBC side of things. David Benavidez in that situation would be the house fighter.
If they manage to get that fight over the line, this would be the biggest year the PBC has had in recent memory. The Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis pay-per-view, the recently announced Terrence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. fight.
And this fight, potentially this fight, the fight between Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez. It's still very early.
We don't know how far along they are.
Particular details of the PBC's offer to Canelo Alvarez to do another fight or another series of fights with them.
But I don't mind it. I'd prefer to see Canelo versus Benavidez in September.
Because he's basic.